Live from New Delhi, you're watching DD India News Hour, India's voice to the world. I'm Siddharth Bharadwaj. Coming up in the next hour. White House rejects US intel assessment which suggests strikes on Iran did not destroy nuclear sites and have probably only set it back by months. Iran and Israel ceasefire appears to have taken hold, with both nations acknowledging it's in place. Israel's PM hails a historic victory for his country, while Iran's president says his people had determined the end of 12-day war. India evacuates 2,858 nationals from Iran as another flights carrying 282 Indians arrived home. Also, Indian embassy in Iran says evacuation exercise to wind up as ceasefire announced. Amid the growing tensions in the West Asia, NATO leaders gathering in Hague for a yearly summit. Defence spending goal of 5% on top of the agenda. India's Defence Minister Rajnath Singh travels to China to attend Shanghai Cooperation Organization ministerial meet. Visit aims to restore ties between the two nations. Countdown begins as India awaits Shubhanshu Shukla's Axiom 4 launch from NASA's Kennedy Space Center in Florida with a brand new SpaceX Crew Dragon capsule. Striking revelations came out in the preliminary US intelligence assessment regarding US airstrikes on Iranian nuclear sites, according to which the attack did not destroy the nuclear capability but only set it back by a few months. Trump said over the weekend that the US deployment of 3,000-pound bombs had obliterated Iran's nuclear program, but that claim appeared to be contradicted by an initial assessment by one of his administration's intelligence agencies, the Defense Intelligence Agency. Sources said Iran's enriched uranium stocks had not been eliminated and the country's nuclear program, much of which is buried deep underground, may have been set back only a month or two. The White House said intelligence assessment was flat out wrong. Earlier, US President Donald Trump publicly scolded both Israel and Iran for truce violations using a televised expletive and ordered Israel to end its bombing operations and bring its fighter jets home. Trump announced that Iran and Israel had agreed to a staggered ceasefire that would bring about an official end to their conflict. The move came after US joined Israel's campaign on Sunday, striking key nuclear sites, prompting a carefully coordinated Iranian retaliation against a US base in Qatar late Monday, which appeared to bring the confrontation to a close.
Everything good. Israel, as you know, turned back. They didn't do that raid this morning, fortunately. That was a big thing. Appreciate it. They had a lot of planes going and they were going to do something and they didn't do it. We're happy about that. Very happy about that. So the ceasefire is very much in effect, and I think we're going to keep it there for a long time.
Meanwhile, US will open Jerusalem embassy today. The shelter-in-place orders for US government employees and their family members has been lifted. Visa operations will resume in both Jerusalem and Tel Aviv on Monday, June 30th. The ceasefire between Israel and Iran announced by US President Donald Trump appears to be holding, with both nations acknowledging it's in place. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu declared a historic victory on Tuesday after agreeing a ceasefire with Iran and insisted that his country's arch foe would never achieve a nuclear weapon. Israel has said, in fact, it had said its bombing campaign was aimed at preventing Iran from acquiring a nuclear weapon, an ambition Tehran has consistently denied. After Trump angrily berated both sides for early violations of the truce on Tuesday, Tehran announced it would respect the terms of the deal if Israel did the same, while Israel said it had refrained from further strikes. Iranian President Masoud Pezeshkian said his country was willing to return to negotiations over his nuclear program, but that his country would continue assert its legitimate rights to peaceful use of atomic energy. Meanwhile, as a shaky ceasefire began to take hold, the UN Security Council today held its scheduled biannual meeting on the implementation of the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action regarding Iran's nuclear program. Under Secretary General for Political and Peace-Building Affairs told the leaders that the ceasefire agreement is an opportunity to avoid a catastrophic escalation and achieve a peaceful resolution of the Iran nuclear issue. While acting U.S. envoy to U.S. Dorothy Shea said, the U.S. strikes on Iran's nuclear facilities effectively fulfilled our narrow objective to degrade Iran's capacity to produce a nuclear weapon. Iran has executed 3 men on Wednesday after they were convicted of collaborating with Israel's Mossad spy agency and smuggling equipment used in an assassination. Entangled in a decades-long shadow war with Israel before the recent open conflict, Iran has put to death many individuals convicted of having links with the Mossad and facilitating the latter's operations in the country. These range from assassinations of nuclear scientists to acts of sabotage meant to undermine Iran's nuclear program. India continued the evacuation of its citizens from Iran, with 2,858 Indians brought back so far amid escalating tensions following the U.S. bombing of 3 Iranian nuclear sites. India's External Affairs Ministry spokesperson Randeep Jaiswal said 292 Indian nationals were evacuated from Iran on a special flight that arrived in New Delhi from Mashhad. Sharing details about India's evacuation mission, Operation Sindhu, he said 2,858 Indian nationals have now been brought home from Iran. Separately, a C-17 military transport aircraft of the Indian Air Force evacuated 165 Indians who were living in Israel. They were received at the airport by Union Minister El Murugan. The aircraft brought back the Indians from Amman. The Indians were taken to the capital city of Jordan through land border crossings. Israel is preparing to fully reopen its airports and expand international travel after President Trump announced that a ceasefire was agreed between Israel and Iran. Israel's transport minister told reporters at a news conference that the plan will be carried out when the Israeli Home Front Command changes the wartime restrictions and in coordination with the Israeli Air Force and intelligence agencies. For nearly 2 weeks, Israel's airspace has largely been closed as Israel and Iran traded air attacks, but Israeli carriers have begun rescue flights to return travelers to Israel. Flight frequencies increased on Tuesday after Trump announced the ceasefire deal, but Israel has yet to fully open its airspace. 32 leaders of NATO nations are expected to agree the 5% goal at a 2-day summit taking place at The Hague in the Netherlands. Beginning the engagements, NATO heads of state and governments posed for a picture ahead of a dinner hosted by Dutch King and Queen on the sidelines. On Tuesday, amid soaring global tensions, the agenda will center on strengthening the alliance's deterrence and defense capabilities in an increasingly complex global security landscape. A primary focus will be on member states' commitment to increasing defense spending, with discussions potentially revolving around a new target of 5% of GDP for defense, encompassing both hard military spending and investments in defense-related infrastructure and cybersecurity. The North Atlantic Treaty Organization is not at conflict, but not at peace either. Conflicts continue to cause instability along the alliance's borders. Also held on sidelines was a meeting between Turkish President Tayyip Erdogan and US President Donald Trump, where both leaders agreed on advancing cooperation in the defense industry, which would in turn help hit a $100 billion bilateral trade volume target. Erdogan also told Trump that Turkey and US have great potential in various sectors, including energy and investments. The presidency also said Erdogan welcomed the Iran-Israel ceasefire achieved through US efforts and emphasized the importance of dialogue in ending the humanitarian tragedy in Gaza. Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky and France's Emmanuel Macron also held a bilateral meeting on Tuesday ahead of a NATO summit. Zelensky warned European NATO members on Tuesday that they risked being attacked by Russia if it was not defeated in Ukraine. He expressed desire to discuss substantial purchases of weaponry, including Patriot missile defense systems, as well as sanctions and other ways to put pressure on Putin during the visit. Leaders of France, Germany and the UK also met ahead of the summit.
Looking after you. Thank you so much.
Member nations of NATO are meeting in The Hague for a crucial two-day summit with a focus on boosting defense spending and strengthening transatlantic ties. NATO chief Mark Rutte emphasized the need for united industrial efforts to counter Russia. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky, on his part, called for increased support, especially in air defense. US President Donald Trump is also attending and expected to meet Zelensky during the summit.
Hike in defense spending is expected to top the agenda as member nations of the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, NATO, are holding a two-day summit in The Hague starting Tuesday. NATO's Secretary General Mark Rutte urged Europe and America to come together to meet the challenge of rearmament. He added, the alliance must win this new war of production against Russia.
There's no defense without a strong defense industry. And there's no European security without a strong transatlantic bond. So we need to bring down barriers and encourage truly transatlantic defense cooperation. Only Europe and North America together can rise up and meet the challenge.
Ahead of the summit, President Volodymyr Zelensky, who is also in The Hague, urged the NATO allies to increase investments in Ukrainian defense production and to crack down on foreign components Russia is using for its weapons production. He reiterated that Ukraine still needed help with air defense.
We still need air defense, and we still have support on this direction from the partners, and really count on continuation and also co-production and big military support that you said about it. Thank you so much. 35+. So this is very important things, very important signals. I am thankful for our strong friendship to you and to all allies.
US President Donald Trump is joining the NATO meet in The Hague and is expected to meet the Ukrainian president. At the summit, members are expected to discuss and approve a hike in defense spending. The alliance aims to strengthen unity and production to counter rising threats, especially from Russia. Mohammad Afzarul Hassan's report for DD India.
China and Taiwan clashed over their competing interpretations of history in an escalating war of words over what Beijing views as provocations from Taiwan's government and said it is impossible to invade what is already Chinese land. China views democratically governed Taiwan as its own territory and has stepped up military and political pressure over the past 5 years. China has a special dislike of Taiwan's president, Lai Ching-te, calling him a separatist. Tensions between China and Taiwan, including several rounds of Chinese war games, have raised the possibility Beijing may one day make good on threats to take Taiwan by force, which could ignite a regional war. China's latest war games were in April, and its Air Force and Navy operate around Taiwan on a daily basis, sometimes using dozens of warplanes, according to the island's defense ministry. And still to come on DD News. Tens of millions of people in major cities across the US Northeast are facing record high temperatures. Hundreds of bottles covered the ground of Bogota's main square, and there are protests. Why? Stay tuned to know. And in Australia, mushroom murder trial enters final stage.
Near the heart of India, a land filled with surprises. In the mighty force of your waters, you hold the deepest secrets that take us back in time. When it's said that the gods walk this land, this is where we feel the warmth of your faces. See hands that mold life. While embracing change, you grow. In you is the land that gives, creates, nurtures, grows, and builds. It's all in you. Come, experience.
You're watching DD India News Hour. I'm Siddharth Bharadwaj. President Donald Trump's Homeland Security Chief on Tuesday praised the U.S. agreement with Panama on migrant repatriation flights and said Washington was ready to replicate it with other countries. During a visit to the Central American nation on Tuesday, Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem said the United States was willing to pay other countries to do the same. According to Noem, Panama's efforts combined with U.S. policies have nearly stopped the flow of migrants through the Darien Gap. Noem also observed the departure of one such flight on Tuesday carrying Colombian migrants. More than 2,300 migrants have been deported from Panama on around 50 flights so far under the agreement.
I want to thank President Molino for his leadership in making sure that he was addressing the Darien Gap and the dangerous situation there when we saw thousands and thousands of individuals going through that area. By his strong policies and his messaging and his partnership with the Trump administration and our enforcement of our laws ensured that that has stopped.
Earlier, Kristi Noem also met with Panama's President Jose Raul Molino and other senior Panamanian officials. Following Panama, Noem is expected to visit Costa Rica, Guatemala and Honduras. Democrats in the U.S. House of Representatives grilled Health and Human Services Robert F. Kennedy Jr. on Tuesday as he appeared before a congressional committee to review health-related spending plans under Trump's budget proposal, including an $18 billion cut to NIH funding and $3.6 billion from the CDC. Democrats and other critics have portrayed the cuts as a gutting of the country's public health infrastructure. Earlier this month, Kennedy fired all 17 members of the U.S. Centers for Disease Control and Prevention's Advisory Committee for Immunization Practices and named 8 new members. Congress accused Kennedy of reversing his promise not to cut members from an independent expert panel, but Kennedy denied violating any prior agreement. Kennedy pledged to overhaul U.S. health agencies by cutting 10,000 jobs, including 2,400 at the CDC and 1,200 at NIH, but has since rehired 942 employees, acknowledging some layoffs were necessary to reverse. U.S. President Donald Trump urged fellow Republicans in the U.S. Senate on Tuesday to advance his sweeping tax cut and spending bill, as party hardliners and moderates squabbled over proposed spending cuts. Republican leaders are pushing to get what Trump calls his One Beautiful, Big Beautiful Bill Act through Congress and to his desk before the July 4 Independence Day holiday. The bill would add trillions to the $36.2 trillion national debt. The parliamentarian has blocked provisions that would cut spending for financial watchdogs, allow offshore gas and oil projects to skirt environmental reviews, and glean savings from food assistance program for the poor and the elimination of green tax credits. The legal team of Colombian Senator Miguel Uribe, who has been hospitalized since he was shot in the head earlier this month during a campaign event, said that they had filed a complaint against Colombian President Gustavo Petro for hate speech against the parliamentarian and presidential candidate. Uribe's lawyer, Victor Mosquera, stated that President Petro had made over 43 hostile and discriminatory social media posts over 3 years, contributing to a hateful environment against Miguel Uribe. President Petro has not responded to allegations from Uribe's lawyer. Miguel Uribe was critically injured in a June 7 Bogota shooting and has had several surgeries in fact. Colombian authorities have arrested 4 people, including the hitman, a 15-year-old minor, and 3 others allegedly involved as accomplices. The trial of an Australian woman accused of murdering 3 elderly relatives of her estranged husband using poisonous mushrooms entered its final stages on Wednesday in a case that has gripped the country. Erin Patterson is charged with murders of her mother-in-law, father-in-law and Gail's sister, along with the attempted murder of Ian Wilkinson, Heather's husband, in July 2023. Patterson denies the charges, which carry a life sentence, with her defense earlier calling the deaths a terrible accident. Boeing's failure to provide adequate training to manufacturing staff was a driving factor in a near-catastrophic Alaska Airlines mid-flight blowout. In its analysis of the January 2024 incident, the National Transportation Safety Board said faulty Boeing staff guidance and procedures, along with ineffective federal oversight, were a probable cause for the mishap, in which a fuselage panel on a 737 MAX broke free from the jetliner shortly after takeoff. There were no serious injuries and pilots managed to fly the plane back to Portland, Oregon and land it safely. But the drama plunged Boeing back into crisis mode, leading to a brief grounding of the 737 MAX models involved in the incident and prompting federal officials to cap the MAX's monthly production. This hit Boeing's profitability. Hundreds of bottles covered the ground of Bogota's main square on Tuesday as part of a protest demanding better working conditions for recyclers. The action was organized by the National Association of Recyclers to raise awareness about the value of recyclers' work, urging authorities to provide public recognition and better prices for materials. In 2020, Bogota had 24,310 recyclers working in difficult conditions and facing competition from large corporations. Despite their crucial role in the recycling system, they lack recognition and fair pay, underscoring the need for public support and proper waste separation to improve their livelihoods and promote sustainability. Now it's time for some weather updates. The India Meteorological Department has predicted heavy rainfall in multiple states until June 30, as showers have continued to disrupt normal life across several states. A yellow alert has also been issued in Delhi, and according to the Weather Department, monsoon is set to arrive in the national capital by June 26. The Weather Department has warned of heavy rains in many parts of western, central, eastern and southern India over the next few days. It has also alerted of heat wave in Jammu division. Parts of central, east and northeast India too will witness heavy rains for the next 7 days. Tens of millions of people in major cities across the US Northeast are facing record high temperatures on Tuesday as the most intense day of a widespread and relentless heat wave that began late last week grips much of the nation. In New York City's Central Park, temperatures could reach 37 degrees Celsius, surpassing the area's past high of 35 degrees Celsius. New Yorkers walked under umbrellas as they navigated the streets, while others sunbathed in swimsuits and parks. The United States National Weather Service said there is also the potential for record heat across other parts of the eastern U.S., including northern Georgia, the Carolinas, Virginia, Maryland, and Pennsylvania. A landslide triggered on Tuesday by heavy rains in Colombia killed at least 8 people and injured 5 others. In a statement posted on X, the mayor of the Medellin suburb of Belo, Lorenza Gonzalez, said over 10 homes were affected by the landslide, which took place before dawn. Aerial footage showed the aftermath of deadly landslide near the Colombian city of Medellin, where heavy rains caused a ravine to flood. According to the local media report, at least 10 people were still missing after the tragedy, which was caused by flooding in a ravine. In China, heavy rainfall has wreaked havoc, with over 80,000 people having to flee their homes due to severe flooding in southwestern province of Guizhou. Rescue teams have been deployed to the affected counties, including Guizhou and Rongjiang, where the flood control emergency response has been raised to the highest level. Parts of China have been battered by heavy rains since last week as the annual East Asia monsoon kicked into high gear, breaking rainfall records in parts of China. While China is no stranger to summer floods, some scientists warn that climate change is ushering in heavier and more frequent rain. Weathermen forecast more rain over the next few days, warning that provinces including Guizhou, hit by overlapping storms, should be especially on their guard. The UK has cut its carbon emissions by 50.4% since 1990 levels. A group of experts tasked with advising the government said that emissions relating to imports rose 80% between 1996 and 2022, particularly from China, as the UK shifted away from manufacturing to services. Much of the drop in emissions of the planet-heating greenhouse gases was due to the closure of UK's coal-fired power generation plants. Heat pump installations were also up by 56% in 2024, although this still represented only around of 1% of homes, among the lowest in Europe. And planting trees to absorb carbon increased too by 59% in 2023-24, the highest planting rate in 2 decades. Kenyans are expected to take to the streets in large numbers on Wednesday to mark the one-year anniversary of anti-government protests that culminated in the storming of parliament and several deaths as police opened fire on demonstrators. Although the protests eventually faded after President William Ruto withdrew proposed tax hikes that had initially sparked the rallies, public anger over the use of force by security agencies has not abated, with fresh demonstrations erupting this month over the death of blogger in police custody. 6 people, including 3 police officers, were charged with murder on Tuesday over the killing of 31-year-old blogger and teacher Albert. All have pleaded not guilty. The death of Albert has become a lightning rod for Kenyans, still mourning the death of more than 60 people killed during last year's demonstrations and blaming security forces for the fatalities and dozens of unexplained abductions. Let's take a look at other stories making news around the world. Disney takes London audiences back to ancient Greece with its new musical Hercules, bringing alive its 1997 animation on the West End stage. The production brings the legendary hero's tale to life with vibrant sets, powerful songs and a fresh theatrical twist packed with humor, heart and heroic adventures. Hercules blends mythology and music in a way that's capturing the imagination of theatregoers young and old. Venezuelans' heritage and Catholic traditions came together during St. John's Day celebrations. Revelers carried small statues of St. John, often donned in bright colors, on their heads as they danced, sang and played percussion instruments to honor St. John the Baptist. The celebration holds special cultural significance in many Afro-descendant communities in Venezuela, symbolizing both spiritual devotion and cultural identity. Louis Vuitton opens Paris Men's Fashion Week with a playful 1970s-inspired collection as the industry reels from the revolving door of creative directors and a diminished appetite for luxury goods. The show featured bold patterns and vintage color palettes, drawing clear inspiration from the disco era while maintaining the house's signature luxury craftsmanship, Louis. The Swiss Army has finally begun clearing operations in Blatten, a small mountain village in the canton of Valais that was almost buried under ice, rock and debris following the dramatic collapse of the Berge Glacier on May 28. For nearly 4 weeks, emergency response teams were unable to access the area due to unstable conditions, including ongoing rockfalls and the risk of further glacier movement. And still to come on DD News Hour. India-UAE ties fuel startup boost with the launch of SEPA Council Startup Series. And 50 years ago, a state of emergency was imposed in India.
One of India's newest states, one of India's oldest lands, Jharkhand is a hidden treasure house of many wonders, from quaint towns to prehistoric rock art. From thrilling adventure sports to historical heritage sites. Discover your spiritual awakening among revered ancient temples.
The month of Shravan in the monsoons is dedicated to Lord Shiva, and that is when the temple gets its maximum footfall. जोहार
जोहार
कहाँ से अमर रे सुता गिरा
Feed your body and soul with Jharkhand's incredible spread of cuisines.
बहुत टेस्टी लगा
Come and explore Jharkhand for an experience like never before. Postcards from Jharkhand on National Geographic.
You're watching DD India News Hour. I'm Siddharth Bharadwaj and a quick recap of headlines. White House rejects US intel assessment which suggests strikes on Iran did not destroy nuclear sites and have probably only set it back by months. Iran and Israel ceasefire appears to have taken hold with both nations acknowledging it's in place. Israel's PM hails a historic victory for his country while Iran's president says his people had determined the end of 12-day war. India evacuates 2,858 nationals from Iran as another flights carrying 282 Indians arrived home. Also, Indian embassy in Iran says evacuation exercise to wind up as ceasefire announced. Amid the growing tensions in the West Asia, NATO leaders gathering in Hague for a yearly summit, defense spending goal of 5% on top of the agenda. India's Defence Minister Rajnath Singh travels to China to attend Shanghai Cooperation Organization ministerial meet. Visit aims to restore ties between the two nations. Countdown begins as India awaits Shubhanshu Shukla's Axiom 4 launch from NASA's Kennedy Space Center in Florida with a brand new SpaceX Crew Dragon capsule. Defence Minister Rajnath Singh to lead a high-level Indian delegation at the Shanghai Cooperation Organization Defence Ministers meeting to be held at Qingdao in China. During the meeting, the defence ministers are expected to discuss a number of issues including regional and international peace and security, counter-terrorism efforts and cooperating among the ministers. In fact, the cooperation among the ministries of defence of SCO member states. The minister is expected to highlight India's continued commitment to the principles and mandate of the SCO, outline India's vision towards achieving greater international peace and security, call for joint and consistent efforts to eliminate terrorism and extremism in the region, and stress on the need for greater trade, economic cooperation and connectivity within SCO. He will also hold bilateral meetings with the defence ministers of some participating countries, including China and Russia, on the sidelines of the meeting. India attaches special importance to SCO in promoting multilateralism, political, security, economic and people-to-people interactions in the region. SCO pursues its policy based on its principles of sovereignty, territorial integrity of nations, non-interference in internal affairs, mutual respect, understanding and equality of all member states. Earlier on Tuesday, India's National Security Advisor Ajit Doval attended the Shanghai Cooperation Organization's NSA conclave in Beijing, where he emphasized the importance of combating terrorism to ensure regional peace and stability. He added that India is deeply concerned about continued threat from terror groups designated by UNSC, including LET, JEM, Al-Qaeda and its affiliates, and ISIS and its affiliates. After Pahalgam terror attack, India launched Operation Sindhu to dismantle terror infrastructure. NSA highlighted the need to shun double standards in the fight against terrorism. NSA reiterated that any act of terror, including cross-border terrorism, is a crime against humanity. He called on SCO members to hold accountable the perpetrators, organizers, financiers and sponsors of acts of cross-border terror and to help bring them to justice. NSA requested support for several important Indian proposals, including algorithm of joint actions to counter challenges posed by international terrorist organizations, joint measures to counter radicalization leading to terrorism, joint information operation to counter extremist ideology. The Kailash Mansarovar Yatra is set to resume on June 30, marking a significant spiritual and cultural revival after a 5-year hiatus. Revered as one of the holiest pilgrimages, the yatra involves a challenging journey to Mount Kailash and the sacred Mansarovar Lake, located in the remote high-altitude regions of Tibet. Prime Minister Narendra Modi had a telephone conversation with Mauritian counterpart Naveen Chandra Ram Gulam on Tuesday, emphasizing the special and unique ties between India and Mauritius. The two leaders reaffirmed their shared commitment to further deepen the enhanced strategic partnership between the two countries. They discussed the ongoing cooperation across a broad range of areas, including development, partnership, capacity building, defense, maritime security, digital infrastructure and people-to-people ties. PM appreciated the wholehearted participation of PM Ram Gulam in the 11th International Day of Yoga. Prime Minister Modi reiterated India's steadfast commitment to the development priorities of Mauritius in line with Vision Mahasagar and India's Neighbourhood First policy. Prime Minister extended invitation to PM Ram Gulam for an early visit to India. Both leaders agreed to remain in touch. The 16th meeting of the India-Nepal Bilateral Consultative Group on Security Issues held in Pune, India on 23-24 June 2025 discussed security cooperation between two neighbours. The Indian delegation was led by Monu Mahavar, Additional Secretary North, Ministry of External Affairs, Government of India, and the Nepali delegation was led by Gahendra Raj Bhandari, Joint Secretary South Asia, Ministry of Foreign Affairs, Government of Nepal. The delegations comprised officials from the respective foreign and defence ministries as well as directorates of the Indian Army and the Nepali Army. Both sides held productive discussions on a wide range of issues relating to security and defence cooperation, such as equipment supplies, training, joint military exercises, disaster relief operations and military exchanges. In addition, the delegations also visited key public and private defence sector manufacturing facilities to explore possibilities for mutually beneficial collaboration. The relationship between India and the UAE has strengthened over the past decade. Riding on this growing relationship between India and the UAE-India Comprehensive Economic Partnership Agreement Council Startup Series was launched on Tuesday in New Delhi, where UAE will help Indian startups soft launch in the Emirates. Speaking more about the India-UAE SEPA Council Startup Series and the India-UAE relation, Ambassador of UAE to India, Dr. Abdul Nasser Jamal Al-Shali spoke to DD India correspondent Dibyendu Mondal. Listen in.
On the sidelines of the UAE-India SEPA Council Startup Series here in New Delhi, I'm joined by the Ambassador of UAE to India. Welcome to Doordarshan. So what is the Startup Series all about and what does it aim to achieve?
So we're going to open up for applications today and startups can submit their pitches, they'll be screened, evaluated, and then they'll be, if successful, they'll have an opportunity to come and present them in person. Once that is done and they actually do qualify, they'll be supported to expand their startups into the UAE in terms of business licensing, trade licensing, understanding the rules and regulations of the land, and being able to also get financing and capital if that is something that they are after.
Right. And how do you look at the startup environment in India, and how do you see the UAE market good for the Indian startup?
It's one of the most solid ecosystems around the world, and we're lucky to basically be in proximity of India and being able to do something like Startup Series, and last year we have done the Founders Retreat. So there's a lot of focus when it comes to startups as a very interesting chapter in this relationship, and a chapter that will drive the numbers between the two countries in terms of bilateral trade and investment further.
Well, you spoke about the bilateral trade between India and the UAE. How do you see SEPA being able to step up investment and trade ties between the two countries?
Quite successful. So today we're looking at numbers where bilateral trade have exceeded $80 billion, non-oil bilateral trade have exceeded $50 billion. The UAE from the year 2000 onwards have invested more than $20 billion. $10 billion were invested in startups in the past few years. So there's a lot of interest, there's a lot of excitement, and SEPA, believe it or not, has an Article 13.2 that's specifically focused on startups, and this is what we're doing today.
Right. Thank you so much for speaking to Doordarshan, and we hope India and UAE ties grow stronger from here on.
Thank you so much.
With camera person Manmohan, this is Dibyendu from New Delhi for DD India.
Indian astronaut Shubhanshu Shukla and 3 others are all set to travel to the International Space Station today after multiple delays. SpaceX has announced that the weather is 90% favorable for liftoff. According to NASA, the launch of Axiom Mission 4, the fourth private astronaut mission to the International Space Station, is scheduled for 12:01 p.m. IST. The mission will lift off from Launch Complex at NASA's Kennedy Space Center in Florida. The crew will travel to the orbiting laboratory on a new SpaceX Dragon spacecraft after launching on the company's Falcon 9 rocket. The targeted docking time is approximately 4:30 p.m. IST on June 26. Peggy Whitson, former NASA astronaut and director of human space flight at Axiom Space, will command the commercial mission, where ISRO astronaut Shubhanshu Shukla will serve as pilot. The Axiom 4 mission has run into multiple delays, first on account of inclement weather and then due to leaks detected on SpaceX's Falcon 9 rocket and later on Russian module of the International Space Station. Giving updates on the launch of Axiom 4 mission to International Space Station, Union Minister Jitendra Singh shared a picture of the crew on social media platform X and wrote that Indian astronaut Group Captain Shubhanshu Shukla formally joins the other 3 crew members for the much-awaited launch, as of now scheduled around 12:01 p.m. IST. "50 years ago, a state of emergency was imposed in India, a time when democracy was stifled and dissent was crushed. Amid the darkness, a young Narendra Modi rose in resistance, organizing protests, supporting the families of jailed RSS workers and evading arrests through various disguises. His steadfast role in the Lok Sangharsh Samiti laid the foundation for a life dedicated to public service and nation building." Here's a special report.
On June 25th, 1975, the dark shadow of emergency engulfed India. The entire country had been turned into a prison. By July 4th, even Rashtriya Swayamsevak Sangh, or the RSS, had been banned. During this time, people of Gujarat rose up against the dictatorship and came out in support of the RSS. Public meetings and rallies began gaining momentum. Playing a key role in organizing these gatherings was a young RSS worker, none other than India's current Prime Minister, Narendra Modi.
हम कुछ लोग बैठे हुए थे एक मीटिंग में। नरेंद्र भाई थे, देशमुख जी थे, शंकर सिंह वाघेला थे और मैं था। पांचों को इस ऐसी जिम्मेवारी सौंपी गई थी कि भाई आप लोगों को बाहर रहना है और हमें ये साहित्य का, संगठन का, संघर्ष का, सत्याग्रह का ये सब काम करना है। दुर्भाग्य से मैं सबसे पहले पकड़ा गया। कुछ महीने के बाद शंकर सिंह गए, बाकी रहे देशमुख जी और नरेंद्र भाई। नरेंद्र भाई कभी भी उनकी किसी पुलिस में आए नहीं।
The way young Narendra Modi carried out his responsibilities with skill and precision did not go unnoticed. Recognizing his capabilities, he was appointed General Secretary of Lok Sangharsh Samiti, a national resistance front formed under leadership of socialist leader Jayaprakash Narayan.
गुजरात में कटोकटी के समय संघ के करीब सब जो प्रचारक थे उनके ऊपर तो वारंट था, इसलिए सब लोग साधारणतः भूगर्भ में थे। नरेंद्र भाई भी भूगर्भ में थे। तो उस समय गुजरात का संघ का संगठन को कार्यशील रखने के लिए हर जगह प्रयत्न हुए थे, वैसे गुजरात में भी हुआ।
Young Narendra Modi's role was to awaken public consciousness against authoritarian imposition of the emergency. But that wasn't all. He also took on the crucial task of editing, printing and distributing magazine Bhugarbh, a powerful medium of resistance.
आपातकाल विरोधी सामग्री का वितरण करना है राजस्थान भर में और वो आएगी गुजरात से। जब मैं अहमदाबाद सामग्री लेने गया, जब जो हमारे सह प्रांत प्रचारक थे उन्होंने कहा मोदी जी ये अपने प्रचारक हैं, इनके पास जाओ, ये आपको सामग्री देंगे। तो भूमिगत होकर पूरे देश की सामग्री का मुद्रण माननीय मोदी जी कराते थे अहमदाबाद में और सारी मुद्रित सामग्री में राजस्थान के विभिन्न कोनों में बांटता था।
Soon, Narendra Modi was being actively pursued by the police. Raids were conducted across the country to apprehend him, but he successfully avoided arrest by disguising himself, sometimes as a sadhu or a saint, at other times as a Sikh. He even went on to assume a new identity, Batuk Bhai, to stay out of reach.
मैं घर पे बैठा था तो एक आदमी आया, उसने मुझे ये बोला कि आपको कोई सरदार जी मिलने आए हैं और आरएसएस के शाखा कार्यालय पे खड़े हैं। मैंने उनको बोला कि भाई मैं आप सरदार जी के बेस में और मैं आपको पहचानता भी नहीं हूँ। तो उसने जो आरएसएस की जो शाखा में जो प्रार्थना गाते हैं, नमस्ते सदा वत्सले मातृभूमि, वो पूरी प्रार्थना उन्होंने मुझे गा के सुनाई। और उन्होंने फिर बोला कि मैं सिरुमल भाई के परिवार को मिलने आया हूँ, क्योंकि सिरुमल भाई जो हमारे शाखा कार्यवाहक थे वो जूनागढ़ जेल में थे। उनके साथ मैंने उनका परिचय करवाया, तो उस टाइम उन्होंने वहाँ खाना भी खाया और उनको 700 रुपया भी भरण पोषण के लिए दिया।
During emergency, thousands of RSS workers were jailed. Their families faced severe financial hardship. Many households were in a state of utter distress. Quietly, young Narendra arranged financial assistance for these families without hurting their dignity or self-respect.
200 से ज़्यादा वहाँ लोग थे हमारे कार्यकर्ता, तो वो तो आ गए मिलने के लिए। किसी प्रकार से नरेंद्र भाई आ गए, बीच की जेल की जो ऑफिस है, 1 घंटे तक सभी से बात की और फिर निकल गए। तो किसी को पता भी नहीं चला कि ये नरेंद्र मोदी थे।
Eventually, the long struggle against the emergency bore fruit. Democracy prevailed. To ensure such a dark chapter is never repeated, the country must remember these experiences. That's why Narendra Modi documented them in Gujarati under the title Sangharsh Ma Gujarat, which means Gujarat in struggle.
79 जनवरी था, जो इमरजेंसी का बारे में एक सोर्स बुक बनाना है। तो उस समय तो आइडिया ये था कि 7 वॉल्यूम सोर्स बुक ऑन इमरजेंसी, पूरा मटेरियल जो है छंडेवाला में एक बहुत बड़ा हॉल के अंदर भरा हुआ था। मोदी ने स्वयं किया, क्योंकि वो तो सॉर्ट आउट करने का काम था। उसमें जितना मटेरियल था उसके बारे में जानकारी तो उनको पूरा था। और सुबह 8 बजे हम तो बैठते थे, रात को जो है 10 बजे तक कंटिन्यूस काम करते थे। और उस समय मैंने देखा मोदी जी का जो है एक लेगन, जो परसिवरेंस।
Another chapter in nation building had been completed, but for patriots like Narendra Modi, there was no pause. In a new role, he embarked on a new path towards building a self-reliant and developed India. Bureau Report, DD India.
As we told you, today marks 50 years since one of the darkest chapters in India's democratic history, the imposition of the emergency. Prime Minister Narendra Modi, in a tweet on social media platform X, said, and I quote, "The people of India mark this day as Samvidhan Hatya Divas. On this day, the values enshrined in the Indian Constitution were set aside, fundamental rights were suspended, press freedom was extinguished, and several political leaders, social workers, students and ordinary citizens were jailed. It was as if the Congress government in power at that time placed democracy under arrest." External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar has also recalled the painful chapter of independent India's history on Samvidhan Hatya Divas. In a tweet, he said, and I quote, "Institutions were undermined, rights were suspended, and accountability was set aside. It also remains a powerful reminder of our collective duty to safeguard constitutional values and uphold the resilience of Indian democracy." Union Minister of Commerce and Industry Piyush Goyal stated that the government under Prime Minister Narendra Modi has focused on quantum change, not incremental progress, and it focused not only on growth but on inclusive, sustainable, honest growth. Speaking at a virtual session organized by the Merchants Chamber of Commerce and Industry, The minister said India is firmly on track to become a $5 trillion economy by 2027, despite global turbulence driven by a collective national effort and strong leadership under Prime Minister Narendra Modi. Germany's cabinet is anticipated to pass the 2025 draft federal budget, a crucial step in country's financial planning today. Presented by German finance minister, it is particularly significant as Germany has been operating under a provisional budget following February elections post-dissolution of the previous coalition government. Key priorities include strengthening internal and external security, with Germany committed to meeting NATO's 2% defense spending target. A notable aspect of the upcoming budget is the proposed €500 billion special fund for infrastructure and climate neutrality, designed to boost investments over the next 12 years without violating Germany's constitutional debt brake. China released guidelines aimed at using financial tools to boost consumption, with pledges to support employment and raise household incomes as part of broader efforts to bolster the economy. The guidelines, drafted jointly by 6 government departments and released by the central bank, said China would support eligible companies across the consumer industry chain to raise funds through stock market listings and other channels. Banks will be encouraged to establish and improve internal structures to provide efficient and convenient services in the field of consumption, innovate credit products while managing risks according to the guidelines. China aims to boost residents' employment and income growth and raise consumer confidence according to the guidelines jointly drafted by the central bank, the state planner, the finance ministry, the commerce ministry, the financial and securities regulators. Tesla missed out on Europe's rebounding EV sales last month as the political activities of its CEO Elon Musk appears to continue to repel customers. Tesla sold 40.2% fewer cars in Europe in May than in the same month last year, according to data from ACEA, the trade association of European car manufacturers. Overall, sales of battery electric vehicles jumped by 25% in the same month in Europe. During first 5 months of 2025, Tesla sales fell 45.2% from the same period last year, as European consumers have been turned off by Musk's close ties to US President Donald Trump. European consumers also increasingly have more battery electric vehicles to choose from, including from Chinese car firms. You're watching DD India News. Time now for sport. And Cricket Australia has announced the schedule for the upcoming Australia A Women's Series against India A, set to take place across Queensland in August. Australian captain Alyssa Healy and vice captain Thalia McGrath will feature in the series as part of their preparations for the upcoming ICC Women's World Cup. The multi-format series begins with a 3-match T20 leg starting from August 7. The tour then moves to Brisbane for a 3-match 50-over series at the Northern Suburbs Cricket Club. The series will conclude with a 4-day clash at the iconic Allan Border Field from 21 to 24th of August. Australia's women captain Alyssa Healy revealed that she will not retire after the upcoming Women's One-Day International World Cup. The 35-year-old wicketkeeper batter has battled a string of injuries since last year. Healy stated that a series of injuries have only deepened her hunger to continue playing at least until the series against India in 2026. Healy admitted that she had initially considered bowing out after the ODI World Cup. However, her perspective has changed and currently she has no plans for retirement. India's young batting sensation Tilak Verma made his county championship debut with a sizzling century for Hampshire against Essex in Chelmsford. Tilak, who came out to bat at number 4, returned unbeaten on 98 after stumps were called on second day. The opening minutes of day 3, Tilak pushed the ball into gap and raised his bat to celebrate a hard-fought 100. However, his celebration was cut short by Simon Harmer as he dismissed the youngster on 100 of 241 deliveries. After a few weeks of vacation, world champions Spain have started training in Madrid ahead of the upcoming European Championship. Spain coach Montse Tomé headed the first training session with 23 players ahead of Euro 2025, including Ballon d'Or winner Aitana Bonmati. Switzerland will host the Women's European Championship 2025, which will take place across 8 venues from July 2nd to July 27. Spain will play a friendly match against Japan before travelling to Switzerland, where they will face Belgium, Italy and Portugal.
Ya. Ahí. Una, gírate. Ahí. Última. Bueno.
Well, I think the team is just ready for that. I think we are hungry for more titles, and we have a team where we play together for long, and we are ready for that. We always want to go for more, and I think we had some time to have a break, to rest, and I hope and I wish that we will be fresh and ready for play the best football we can play.
Thousands gathered at Cusco's major archaeological site to witness the Inti Raymi festival, a reenactment celebrating the Inca tradition of paying homage to the sun god Inti. And of course, it's a big day for everyone as the Axiom 4 mission will possibly be launched today. All hopes are there, and these are the visuals, viewers, that we are showing it to you. The mission is getting ready. The launch is approximately at about 12:01 p.m. IST. And these are the visuals that is on your screen, viewers. A proud moment, of course. After several delays, India's Shubhanshu Shukla is all set to travel to the International Space Station on American commercial mission with 3 other astronauts.
Dragon has played a significant role in advancing our future in space by safely transporting crew and cargo to and from the space station. There are currently 4 Dragon spacecraft supporting human spaceflight.
That's all for this edition of DD India News Hour, but let us know your thoughts on the news of the day. For those on the go, you can get all the latest news and updates from India and across the world on DD India mobile app. The app is available on both Android and iOS platforms, and you can scan the QR code on the screen to download now. We'll be back with more news as it breaks here on DD India. I'm Siddharth Bharadwaj from all of us here in Delhi. Thanks for watching DD India News Hour.